This morning, when I woke up, I don't usually recall the dreams I had, but I had one dream, and I woke up from it at the end of it or something like that, and basically I think I was still a monk, but I can't remember the exact circumstances. But I was back. Yeah, now I remember even more. But I was back like at a house that was misplaced into like a university anyway. There was a group of friends who, before I left the monastery, I was living with, and I lived with them for a while. Anyway, and this house was now my sister and my mother, and I said, oh yeah, I'd like to kind of come and live in the house again, and they said, no. And then my mom was just visiting, so then I heard her having a big conversation about this. And it was, it was that feeling, there was a feeling of sort of rejection and something like that. And then the dream went on with me kind of, I think I was a monk and I was like trying to figure out where to go, and I was also in university, and on it went. But it was, I had nowhere to stay and I was trying to figure it out. So it was an interesting feeling waking up from that, because it was, there was a definite emotion of dejection and almost depression, and then it quickly started to fade as I recognized that it was just a dream, and so it didn't have any reality to it. But as I continued, around my kuti and I kind of started recollecting, this is something that for a while I haven't felt, that kind of sense of, it's sort of like, or it doesn't have as much of a stain, that sense of dejection, or I thought about jealousy, or romantic rejection, or jealousy that occurs, and I just felt this sense of gratitude, that even when there are difficulties, they tend to, difficulties with others in the community, they tend to not last too long and burn off quickly, and usually are not very dramatic things. They're just sort of, there's sort of a sense of ease. And I remember earlier on, as an anagarika, that wasn't the case. There was a lot of strife within me, and still I can feel hurt by things that occur in the community. I remember that being much more carried over as an anagarika from the world, and and even as a samanera, and then slowly that changing over time. And I don't think there's anything I can really attribute to that, just the sense of just living the monastic life, living in community, and having the value of letting go of this, or looking at these emotions, looking at the sankharas and just seeing that, they arise and they cease, and not to take them so seriously. And so sometimes people will talk to me about difficulties they have, especially when guests are here and they're talking about difficulties they're having. Yeah, it's just it's a rough world out there, but the sense of what we have here is something very special, and the practice does work. It slowly decreases our inability to kind of deal with unwholesome states, and so that it's sort of like a disability that we have at first, and then the practice, it just works its way in, and I think the fact of living in a monastery just sort of accelerates that so much, and it helps us kind of work with these difficulties in such a palpable way, because that's the goal. The goal is to be released from suffering, And when we're living outside the monastery, before becoming monastics, that can be such a hard thing, because in the worldly sense, that's sort of like, there's a sense of not wanting to suffer, but it's just sort of to create a lot of sense pleasure and worldly happiness, temporary happiness. So by living together and practicing the Buddha's teachings and having that as a goal we all share, it just is so helpful in a way, because we're just surrounding each other with that sense of the same purpose. And of course, sometimes it's people have difficulties with each other, but because we have this same shared goal and we all live together, it just has such a beneficial result.